Anton smiled at Dawn, reaching out to cup her face, his thumb gently stroking her cheek. "She's concerned about me. There's really nothing to it. I haven't been sleeping well. Do you think we could grab some food and head to my apartment?" He tiptoed around his response to the question without outright lying. The facts were simple. Dr. Hawthorne was indeed worried about his mental health, and he had been having difficulty sleeping. Dawn gave him a searching gaze, unable to shake the feeling that he was keeping something from her, but she nodded nonetheless. "I had a terrible night too," she said, offering him a watery smile. I'm sorry," he replied, his voice deep and mellow. "It's not your fault." "What are you apologizing for?" she said as she snuggled into his arms. "You should tell your mum you're going to be with me, babe. Once we get in there, I can't promise I'll let you out," he quipped. Dawn shook with laughter. "You promise?" she replied, her voice soft and tender. "I'm very serious," he said. Dawn tilted her face up to beam at him. Anton lowered his face to kiss her, then lifted her, still holding her as he walked back to the house, making her giggle. The sound was like balm to his soul. Meanwhile, as Arya made her way back upstairs, she decided to check on Jake's baby, see how he was progressing inside the biosync womb incubator, and officially meet the pediatrician, Dr. Hart, before heading up to join Nathaniel. Upon reaching the corridor, the gentle notes of classical music filled the air, prompting a smile to spread across her lips. Arya thought that classical music, especially gentle and melodic tunes, had long been believed to have a calming effect on unborn babies. Studies have suggested that low, melodious music not only soothed expecting mothers, but also played a role in the cognitive and emotional development of their children in the womb. The rhythmic flow of such music is said to mirror the heartbeat, creating a sense of comfort and familiarity for the baby. She had always found the idea fascinating, that something as simple as music could influence the bond between a mother and her child, calming anxieties and promoting an early connection even before the baby entered the world. It was as if the soothing notes spoke a language that only a developing life could fully understand, nurturing not only the mind but also the heart. She immediately felt she was going to like the young doctor. When she reached the nursery door, she found it slightly ajar and gently pushed it open to peer inside. She spotted the young blonde woman she had seen in the security footage sitting beside the incubator, a pensive frown on her face as she studied something on the pad in her lap. "I hope everything is all right?" Arya asked as she strolled in. Dr. Hart looked up, blinking in surprise before recognition lit her eyes. She stared at Arya wide-eyed and jumped up, causing her pad and pen to fall to the floor. Quickly snatching them up, she apologized. Once she stood upright again, she cleared her throat, straightened her posture, and said, "It's, nice, no, great, to finally meet you in person, Dr. Everly. I mean, Dr. Hawthorne," she stuttered. Arya chuckled softly and walked closer, offering a handshake. Dr. Hart glanced from Arya's face to her hand, awe etched across her features, before slowly accepting the handshake. "It's nice to meet you too, Dr. Hart. Dr. Williams has told me a lot about you," Arya said. Eva detected a hint of sympathy in her tone and nodded, lowering her gaze. Arya couldn't help but notice the scarf around the doctor's neck, sure it was hiding the scar from her recent attack. "Thank you, Dr. Hawthorne. I truly appreciate you granting me this sanctuary," Eva replied. "Please call me Arya," she responded, giving Eva a friendly pat on the shoulder. Eva nodded gratefully. "So tell me, how is our miracle baby faring?" Arya asked, shifting her focus to the incubator. The soft glow from the machine illuminated the baby, making him seem ethereal inside the tube. "He's doing as well as can be expected, given the circumstances," Eva began, but Arya threw her a sidelong glance. "I need him to do more than just exist, Dr. Hart," Arya said firmly. "Please call me Eva," she replied quickly with a shy smile. Arya nodded in acknowledgement. The machine is doing exactly what it's supposed to, but the baby feels more like a test subject than a growing human, Eva said with a sigh. "So there aren't any technical problems?" Arya pressed. "No, everything is functioning perfectly, but a machine can't provide the emotional nurturing that the baby needs. I just wish there was another way to help him complete the circle," Eva added, her voice carrying a note of compassion and concern that didn't go unnoticed by Arya. I did have another option before we opted for this, Arya explained. I was considering transferring him into another uterus as a form of late-stage surrogacy, but we didn't want just anyone. We had a specific candidate in mind, but I'm thankful it didn't work out. She couldn't help but think of the disaster that would have followed if Christine had agreed to be the surrogate. They would have been trapped, with her holding the baby over them like a volatile liability. I know that embryo transfers are possible in the early stages of pregnancy, Eva said, her curiosity piqued. And I've read about the Nigerian surgeon, Dr. Oluyinka Olutoye, who performed an incredible surgery by removing a fetus from the womb at 23 weeks to remove a life-threatening tumor, then returned the baby to the uterus to be carried to term. But I've never heard of surrogacy being initiated so late in fetal development. She wondered who Arya had in mind as the potential surrogate. Was it someone close to Jake, or was it a more transactional arrangement? Perhaps they discovered the person wasn't a suitable candidate, either medically or ethically. I am not a fan of the word impossible, Dr. Hart, Arya said firmly. I exhaust every option to ensure that everyone under my care has a fighting chance, no matter how complex or unlikely the solution may seem. She placed her hand on the incubator, her voice brimming with determination. The strength behind her words made Eva understand why Arya had risen to such prominence as a surgeon. A small smile tugged at Eva's lips, admiration gleaming in her eyes. Would there have been any adverse effects on the surrogate in a case like that? Eva asked, delving deeper into the medical implications. There's never a surgical procedure without inherent risks. Even a straightforward appendectomy can become complicated and result in mortality. I can't assert that there are no adverse effects, but comprehensive screenings would certainly be conducted to ensure that the surrogate is medically fit for the procedure, Arya explained, a faint smile curling at the corners of her lips. I genuinely want him to survive and emerge without any congenital anomalies. This biosync womb incubator is the first of its kind. And you're right. Our miracle baby does resemble a test subject. All we want is for him to thrive and to provide him with the best possible care, she said softly, her tone filled with compassion. Eva understood the gravity of Dr. Hawthorne's words. Baby Eli still faced significant challenges ahead, and his prognosis remained precarious. It was clear to her that Dr. Hawthorne was deeply invested in the well-being of the infant, just as she had developed a strong emotional connection to him. Occasionally she questioned whether her feelings were influenced by Eli's father, but she quickly dismissed the thought. Regardless of any unspoken dynamics between her and Jake Darfield, baby Eli had captured her heart the moment she first observed him in the incubator, looking so delicate and fragile, especially knowing that his mother had passed away and that his chances of survival were still uncertain. I'll leave you to your work, Arya said with a smile as she moved toward the exit. Is it too late? Eva found herself saying, her heart racing with fear and apprehension as she realized the decision she had unconsciously made. Arya turned, her brow furrowing. The surrogacy, do you think we could still consider it? Eva asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Arya blinked, clearly taken aback but maintaining a professional demeanor. Are you volunteering, Dr. Hart? She asked, her tone calm and composed. To serve as Eli's temporary gestational carrier? Yes, I suppose, Eva responded, tears welling in her eyes as the emotional weight of her choice washed over her. What are you doing, Eva? A voice cried in her head. Eli? Arya repeated with a warm smile. You're a compassionate but potentially overzealous pediatrician, Dr. Hart, she teased, prompting Eva to chuckle despite how terrified she was. She could feel her very core trembling. Arya moved closer, standing just a few inches away. You need to maintain professional detachment with the infants you care for, or you risk emotional burnout, she cautioned, her tone imbued with sincerity. I know. Dr. Williams has told me that several times. I'm certain he's lost count of how many times he's caught me in the supply closet crying over a patient's case. They're just so small, Dr. Hawthorne, and it breaks my heart to see them suffering, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks now. Arya chuckled and glanced around for a tissue. Spotting one in the corner, she rushed over and tore off a piece to hand to Eva. Thank you. Eva said as she accepted it. I'm sorry, I'm such an emotional wreck, she admitted sheepishly. No, you're perfectly human. I appreciate your offer, but Eva, this is a significant decision, and I don't want you to feel compelled to do it or think you have some obligation just because he's your patient right now. Arya started, but Ava cut her off. He means more to me than that. I can't quite explain it, but... Ava started to say, her voice trailing off. That much is clear. You already have a name for him, Arya said with a warm smile. Please, Dr. Hawthorne, if you believe it's a safe option for both the surrogate and Eli, let me do it, Eva urged, reaching out to grasp Arya's hand. Arya felt tears prickling in her own eyes, but worked to maintain her professional demeanor. She nodded and Eva smiled through her tears. Can we include Dr. Williams in this discussion? Arya asked. Eva shrugged. It's ultimately my decision, she replied. I understand, but I'll be collaborating with him and two of my colleagues, Dr. Rowan and Dr. Sterling. We should hold a roundtable discussion and have you go through a few tests. How does that sound? Arya suggested. Eva nodded jerkily, her long lashes fluttering, prompting Arya to gently touch her cheek. You're a true angel, Dr. Evangeline Hart. I believe Eli is fortunate to have you in his life, she said. Evangeline's lips trembled as she nodded. Arya then stepped back and exited the room. Jake, who had run into his room to hide as soon as he heard Dr. Hawthorne approaching the exit to the nursery, slowly opened the door to peer out just as the elevator doors closed. He stepped out, his heart racing and his breathing fast and shallow from the conversation he had just overheard. To say he was stunned was an understatement. Dr. Hart was volunteering to help carry his baby. He had no idea how the conversation had led to that. He'd only just arrived when Dr. Hart asked if it wasn't too late, and Dr. Hawthorne had pointedly asked if she was volunteering. His heart skipped a beat as her response echoed in his head. Tears blurred his vision because of the impact. He had immediately thought she was insane for even considering it, wanting to carry a baby she didn't know just a few days ago. But Dr. Hawthorne seemed to understand why. She connected it to the fact that Dr. Hart already had a name for his child, which meant it was clear that Dr. Hart cared for his baby and was being selfless. But could he truly allow that? Could he let her risk herself for his child? It's ultimately my decision, her firm resolve echoed in his mind. He re-entered his room, not wanting to announce himself just yet, so Dr. Hart wouldn't know that he was aware of the conversation. He started to pace before sitting down and cradling his head in his hands, letting his mind drift back to a few minutes earlier when he had run into Anton in the foyer with Miss Hill. He had thought Anton was getting bold, evidently not caring if he was caught with Mr. Hill's daughter anymore. The younger lady's bloodshot eyes didn't go unnoticed. He wondered what that was about. After he had finished exchanging pleasantries with the two and headed toward the stairs, Anton called out to him, making him pause and look back. He watched as Anton told Miss Hill to go ahead to the kitchen before approaching him. Someone is getting bold, Jake teased, his hooded eyes filled with laughter. You have no idea what I had to go through for that, Anton replied, making Jake frown. He found out, didn't he? Jake probed. Anton nodded. So are we helping you escape or hiding you somewhere? Jake teased, though his eyes held a gleam of seriousness. He goofed and somewhat gave me an edge, Anton replied. Jake arched an eyebrow. What the hell did he do? Jake demanded, his eyes darkening. I'll tell you later if Andrew or Charles didn't beat me to it first. I don't want to talk about it here, was Anton's response. All right, fair enough, Jake remarked. So remember, we have a bonfire night later today, Anton said. Jake shrugged, wondering why Anton felt the need to bring that up. It wasn't as if there was anything to it. Andrew always made certain everything was planned, and all they needed to do was show up. What about it? You clowns decided on a costume theme this year? He jeered. Anton chuckled. No, but that's a good idea. We should introduce a costume theme. Perhaps we could be kind of characters, Anton started to say. Jake raised an eyebrow, silently questioning the idea, which stopped Anton in his tracks. Sorry, he muttered awkwardly, and then added, one of our men is thinking of asking Dr. Hart to be their date, Anton said. Jake felt a surge of exasperation. He didn't like that at all. So, he forced himself to sound nonchalant. Just giving you a heads up, man, Anton said with a knowing grin before striding away, saying, See you later, boss. Rushing up the stairs afterward, Jake fought down the surge of emotions that the thought of Eva being with another man stirred in him. Finding out what she was ready to do out of compassion for his child wasn't helping. He wasn't supposed to care about her. He was supposed to stay away from her and let her do whatever she wanted, even be with another man. Now she had opened up a whole new path of possibilities in his mind, possibilities accompanied by vivid scenarios playing out in his head. How the hell was he supposed to fight whatever spells she was weaving on him when he saw her tummy swell with his baby? Jake stood up and started to pace again. He wondered if he should confront Dr. Hart and ask why she wanted to help him. But Dr. Hawthorne's comment about running some tests on Dr. Hart replayed in his mind, and he paused, his brows furrowed in thought. What if the tests revealed she couldn't go through with the surrogacy? Confronting her would be pointless. Perhaps the entire situation would fall apart and he wouldn't need to address it at all. Jake decided he would act as though he hadn't heard anything about Dr. Hart's offer to be his son's temporary mother, and pretend that nothing had changed. However, he planned to put some distance between himself and Dr. Hart for his own peace of mind. Deciding to take a shower before joining the others, he began to remove his shirt and head to the bathroom. His stomach grumbled, a reminder that he hadn't eaten all day. Meanwhile, Arya took the elevator up to the next floor, hurried down the corridor, and entered the lab's surgical theater. As she walked in, Nathaniel glanced her way, and she quickly made her way over to give him a kiss. "Is everything okay with Anton?" he asked. Arya nodded. "He's fine," she replied, then glanced over her shoulder to ensure no one was listening. Leaning closer, she whispered, "I'm going to persuade him to see our therapist at Evergreen." Nathaniel grinned. "Are you planning on stealing Williams's patients?" Arya playfully swatted his thigh. "No, I'm not. It's just a trial," she said in a hushed voice. "Sounds like you're poaching his clients to me," Nathaniel teased loudly, causing Arya to gasp. "Nathan!" she protested, stomping her foot, which only made him laugh. "You're lucky I can't hit you," she retorted. "What's this about stealing patients?" Dr. Williams asked, appearing at the adjoining door. Before Nathaniel could respond, Arya quickly covered his mouth. "Dr. Williams, just the man I was looking for," Arya said, while Nathaniel's shoulders shook with laughter. "I was coming to talk to you about Dr. Hart," Arya added quickly. "What about her?" Dr. Williams asked, with a hint of concern in his voice. When Nathaniel mumbled something, suggesting Arya wasn't being honest, she pressed her hand more firmly over his mouth. Dr. Williams tried not to laugh. "How would you assess her mental health?" Arya asked, her tone more serious now. Nathaniel gently bit the inside of her hand, sending a shiver through her as she shot him a heated look. The playful glint in his eyes faded, replaced by a more intense hunger. The urge to kiss him welled up in her, and she started to move closer when Dr. Williams cleared his throat. She giggled as Nathaniel groaned. "Why do you hate me, Williams?" Nathaniel quipped, making the older man chuckle. Arya pressed a quick kiss to his lips, but as she pulled back, the dark, hooded stare Nathaniel gave her promised retribution, making her pulse race. "To answer your question, Dr. Hawthorne, Dr. Hart's mental health is sound. If it weren't, I wouldn't have allowed her to resume work," Dr. Williams said, interrupting the couple's intimate moment. Arya nodded, refocusing on the matter at hand. "What about her emotional stability?" Dr. Williams's brows furrowed. "She's emotionally grounded as well," he replied with certainty. "Why are you asking these questions?" Arya hesitated, glancing between Dr. Williams and Nathaniel. Rowan, who had been in the other room, joined them, leaning against the doorframe. Finally, she said, "I just wanted to make sure. Dr. Hart offered to be Jake's baby surrogate." A brief silence fell over the room before Nathaniel blurted, "What?" Dr. Williams looked just as stunned. "She offered to be the surrogate," he repeated, surprise laced with a hint of resignation, as if it wasn't entirely unexpected. Dr. Hart had always been a compassionate person, which was why Dr. Williams often worried about her. Arya nodded again and explained, "Yes, she reported that while the BioSync womb incubator is technically flawless, she's concerned about the baby's emotional development. I understand her concerns. While I'm thankful the incubator is keeping the baby alive, I'd prefer for the child to develop naturally." Dr. Williams raised an eyebrow. "So are you considering honoring Dr. Hart's request?" Now you see why I was worried about her mental state. Do you think there's any chance she's unstable? Arya asked, covering all her bases. She's perfectly fine. Just one of those people who can't stand to see others in pain, Dr. Williams replied, with a sigh. That was my assessment as well, but I had to ask to be certain, Arya said. Are you really going to allow it, though? Ethically, it wouldn't be right, Rowan inquired with interest. I'm sure we can find a way to make it work, Arya answered with a shrug. But before making any decisions, we need to run a thorough set of tests on her. We have to ensure she's physically capable of undergoing such a major procedure. The tests might even reveal that she isn't healthy enough, which would give us a valid reason not to proceed. Dr. Williams nodded in agreement. I'd recommend a full physical evaluation, including cardiovascular health, uterine integrity, and hormonal assessments, Rowan chimed in, his tone calm and professional. We'll also need to conduct psychological screenings to ensure her mental and emotional state can handle the strain of surrogacy, Arya added. Nathaniel, still processing the news, glanced between Arya and Dr. Williams. This is a massive decision. She needs to be absolutely certain, he rasped. And you might want to bring Jake in on this, he added with a frown. I just realized I don't know if I've met this Dr. Hart. You have, back at the hospital. It's understandable you don't remember her. We were all focused on your medicals back then, Dr. Williams chimed in. Nathaniel nodded, his brow furrowed in thought. I know informing Jake is important, but I'd prefer we run the tests first and be certain we're going ahead with it before bringing him in. Arya said, I don't want to raise his hopes before we have all the findings. Nathaniel nodded in understanding. Speaking of findings, Nathaniel gestured to the report Rowan had given him earlier and said, Samuel Cavalier is beating the cancer. If he continues like this, he might be able to visit Sean for the holidays, Nathaniel said with a smile. That's good news, Arya exclaimed, beaming with smiles. Your botanical drug isn't something to keep quiet about, Mr. Hawthorne. The Medical Association needs to know what you're working on. You have no idea how many people you could save. Add that to the Biosync womb incubator and... I don't understand why they're not on the market yet, Rowan said, a note of awe and respect in his voice. Knowing my husband, I think I can answer that, Arya said, offering Nathaniel a warm smile. Nathaniel doubted he heard anything she said after the first 3 words, his heart soaring at the pride and love etched on her face as she spoke about him. He's very careful about what the Hawthorne brand is stamped on, which is commendable. But Rowan is right. The phytomedicine for cancer would be a major breakthrough, Arya said. Dr. Williams nodded, a proud smile etched on his face. Thank you for your recommendation. I'll definitely let the board know. However, I hope I can trust you two to keep this to yourselves until we're good and ready, Nathaniel quipped, making Dr. Williams laugh. He knew Nathaniel didn't need the board's approval to announce his inventions. All they cared about was money. But Arya and Rowan didn't know that, so it was Nathaniel's way of telling them not to blab. Rowan nodded with a smile. Arya stuck her tongue out at him, making him chuckle. I'll inform Dr. Sterling about the test Dr. Hart is supposed to undergo, so we can get the results as soon as possible, Rowan said. Thank you, Rowan, Arya replied. Rowan nodded and left. A while later, Jake, who was joining Andrew and Charles outside the building, noticed Aidan reversing a jeep out of the driveway and heading toward the northern region of the estate. Us? Where's he going? Isn't it too early for the bonfire night to start? Jake asked as he sauntered down the porch stairs to join the 2 men, glancing at his wristwatch. It was 6 p.m. Doctor's business. He's helping drive Rowan and Dr. Hart to the concierge medical unit to meet with Dr. Sterling, Charles explained. Jake's heart skipped a beat, but he managed to keep his composure. What's with the code switch? Relax, lover boy. You're with family. Don't go all Dr. Sterling on us when we know you'd rather just say Claire. Jake teased, causing Charles to playfully lunge at him. Jake shut his eyes reflexively, raising his hands in defense while laughing. Idiot, Charles muttered, smacking Jake on the back of the head. Since you guys don't seem to have anything else to do, mind taking a walk with me to the lakeside to check on the setup? Gotta make sure everything is ready there for the night, Andrew said. Sure, why not? It's not like it's -1 degree out here. By all means, let's freeze our butts off for a night of shenanigans. Jake quipped, making the other two laugh. Don't act like you don't enjoy it, or you're getting soft in your old age, Darfield, Charles teased. Look who's calling me old, Jake fired back. When was the last time you did a night patrol? All you do now is daytime shifts and then head back to your apartment with Lady Claire, Jake teased again. Son of a... Charles cursed, rushing at Jake, who broke into a run. Andrew's shoulders shook with laughter. He watched as Charles tried to catch up to Jake but couldn't, leaving Jake to stop a little ahead and poke more fun at him. Andrew chuckled to himself, enjoying the carefree display. This was one of the moments that made him appreciate being here on the estate with men who used to stare blankly into space, as if there was nothing but despair ahead. The transformation from what they once were to what they were now was astounding. The memory of Anton standing in the lab's surgical theater, head bowed, fists clenched, and voice loaded with defeat as he said, "I didn't kill my family, boss," played in Andrew's mind, making anger rise again. He had ensured that no one would have the power to bring them back to those dark times when they were nothing but shells of despair, and Tom Hill had dared to rock that boat. Andrew was pretty sure if Tom hadn't relented, it would have caused a major fallout between him and Tom, and a crack in the family unit they had built all these years was something Nathaniel wouldn't tolerate. Jake looked over at Andrew, immediately noticing the older man's clenched fists, tightened jaw, and blank stare. Sensing something was wrong, he recalled his recent conversation with Anton and said, "I saw Anton earlier. He mentioned something about Mr. Hill messing up. What's that about?" Charles let out a sigh, and as Andrew joined them, Charles explained to Jake what had happened. "Whoa, what?" Jake exclaimed in disbelief. "That's what happens when you let your heart rule your brain," Andrew retorted. Boy, he was smart to back off. "The boss would have told him to get the hell out," Jake said, completely convinced. Without delay, Charles reaffirmed. Andrew felt a surge of emotion that his men's conviction in regard to Nathaniel Hawthorne's loyalty was unwavering, and that's why they would give their lives for him. Upon reaching the lake view, Jake couldn't help but smile at the layout. The giant logs built for the bonfire were at the center of the snow-dusted grounds, with luxurious camping tents neatly arranged far from the fire and closer to the foliage surrounding the area. In one corner stood a long, sturdy wooden table, reminiscent of medieval times. Although there was no food on it yet, the setup for where the food bowls would be stationed was already in place. Jake chuckled when he saw that they had set up the boss's tent, as always. "Someone wants to be murdered by Dr. Hawthorne," Jake mused aloud. The other men heard and chuckled in response. The memory of the last bonfire made the smile fade from Jake's lips. Nathaniel had been as white as a ghost, yet he'd shown up to play guitar alongside Andrew, with Tom Hill singing some old classical tunes. Jake let out a deep sigh, glad that those scary days were behind them. "Are Lewis and the others going to miss it?" "That wouldn't be fair," Charles said. "They won't miss it, so don't worry. The last time I spoke with them, they had just buried Mrs. Blackwood and were already leaving Sylvan Ridge," Andrew replied. "That was fast. I figured Blackwood would want to stay a bit in Alaska," Jake remarked. "Don't forget he didn't really have the best memories there, and besides, I heard there was a bit of trouble," Andrew explained. "What trouble?" both Jake and Charles asked, furrowing their brows. Isla hadn't been aware that their next stop would be Alaska after retrieving Mrs. Blackwood's body, but there was nothing she could do about it now. It wasn't like she had anyone or anything waiting for her back at her apartment, not even a plant. It seemed too late to voice any objections, and besides, she had volunteered to come along. Once everyone settled back into their seats, Isla quickly messaged her assistant, informing him that she might not be able to make it to the office the following day, or possibly the day after. She claimed it was due to a family emergency, though she was certain her assistant would find that strange. In all her time working for the Hawthornes, nothing like this had ever come up, and she knew he'd probably think she had something else going on. Once the plane was airborne again, Ethan didn't return immediately. When he finally did, he chose not to sit back in his seat across from Isla. Instead, he joined his friends, speaking in low voices. Isla caught bits and pieces of their conversation, something about a wake and Ethan telling Alex it wasn't necessary. Nate already had Andrew handle it. Alex replied in a reassuring tone. Aria's hospital staff and anyone from town who wants to attend will be there. You don't need to do anything but show up, Ethan. Ethan chuckled, though it wasn't the amused kind. Running his fingers through his hair, he settled back on the chair. Isla, watching him from the other seat, could see the displeasure written on his face. He didn't seem happy about the elaborate plans. It left her wondering why. After all, he clearly loved his mother, so why wouldn't he want a proper funeral with family and friends paying their respects? Ethan didn't return to his seat until they were 5 hours into the flight. By then, the stewards were serving food again, and everyone rose to eat. "Could I please get a bottle of whiskey?" Ethan asked after finishing his meal. He was the first to leave the dining area, and when the stewardess returned with a small bottle, he thanked her, took it, and headed to the back of the cabin, disappearing through a door. "Poor thing," Anna murmured sympathetically. "Should I have Nate call him?" Alex wondered aloud, sounding uncertain. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Isla blurted out before she could stop herself. "Sorry," she quickly added, flustered. "I just feel kind of useless." She chuckled awkwardly, her gaze dropping to her hands as she fidgeted. Anna reached out, gently placing her hand over Isla's. "Don't apologize. He seems to like you, and he did invite you along. You might feel out of place, but I'm sure he has his reasons for having you join us," Anna reassured her with a kind tone. Isla nodded, feeling grateful for the other woman's kindness. She was surprised to find that Anna, despite her wealth and clear connection to even more, wasn't snobbish. Instead, she was down-to-earth and genuine, which helped Isla relax a little. "He's just stressed about the whole burial situation," Alex explained, giving Isla a warm smile before excusing himself to join Stephen, Lewis, and Jordan at the other end of the cabin. Anna tried to engage Isla in light conversation, but she couldn't help noticing the other woman casting frequent glances towards the cabin where Ethan had disappeared. "Do you want to check on him?" Anna asked, catching Isla off guard. I don't." "No," Isla stammered, shaking her head as she lowered her gaze. Anna smiled knowingly, then leaned forward, gently lifting Isla's chin with her finger, so their eyes could meet. "You like him, don't you?" Anna asked with a warm smile. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Isla felt mortified that her feelings were so obvious. "No, I promise, I'm just trying to help," Isla quickly replied, flustered. "Uh-huh," Anna responded, unconvinced. She leaned in closer over the table. "If you're not sure that you like him, let me give you a little warning. Don't get too close. Do you know what's in the back of this jet?" Anna's tone was probing, almost conspiratorial. Isla shook her head, her heart beating faster, sensing that Anna was about to reveal something important about what she might be getting into with Ethan. "There's a room back there, with bunk beds," Anna said slowly. "You don't go into a room with bunk beds with men like Ethan unless you're absolutely sure you want to. He, Nate, and my Alex, they were what we used to call players. They're experts in seduction. If you dangle yourself in front of Ethan, he'll devour you, and by the time he's done, it'll be game over." Isla's pulse raced, a mix of excitement and nervousness surging through her. She wasn't sure if this was the reaction Anna was trying to provoke. "So Isla," Anna added with a quip, "if you're not sure what you want, take the time to figure it out before you cross that line." Isla nodded with a shy smile, her mind spinning from the information. Oh, she was fully aware of just how dangerous getting close to Blackwood could be. Miss Morris's warning, however well-intentioned, had come far too late. Her pulse still raced from the memory of their kisses, and the desperate longing for more had already taken root. If Miss Morris thought Isla still had any power to stop the emotional train Ethan Blackwood had set in motion, she was gravely mistaken. She nodded nonetheless. They arrived at Sylvan Ridge at 9 p.m. Alex entered the cabin Ethan had disappeared into and found him awake, cradling his head in his hands. "It's time," Alex said. Ethan nodded and got up. "You should freshen up and change," Alex added. Ethan let out a sigh. "You really think people are going to come?" he asked, arching an eyebrow at Alex. "Trust me," Alex replied, holding Ethan's gaze with firm resolve. "All right," Ethan said as he started to take off his shirt. "Anna and I will get ready in the next cabin. When you're ready, give Miss Devereux room to do the same," Alex instructed. Ethan chuckled and replied, Of course. His voice tinged with bitterness. He wasn't going to lie. He was already regretting letting Isla come along. In his defense, he had thought that after retrieving his mother, they would head to Sylvan Ridge, bury her, and return to New York. But now he discovered that Nate and Andrew had planned an elaborate burial, knowing just how messed up his life was back home in Sylvan Ridge. Since he couldn't have Isla wait for them on the jet, she would have to witness just how pathetic both his life and his mother's life were. The thought made him a little upset. He shrugged off his shirt, unbuttoned his pants, and kicked them off, snatching them off the floor before heading to the adjoining glass shower stall. Outside the cabin, Alex told Isla to give Ethan 30 minutes before going in to freshen up and change if she wanted to. Alex and Anna then disappear into another door, which Isla guessed must lead to another cabin. She looked out the window and saw that beyond the tarmac were hills covered in snow. She had never been to Alaska, yet another place she hadn't been able to visit, and probably wouldn't get the chance to explore before they headed back home. She wondered if Ethan meant what he said about inviting her back to visit Paris at leisure, and silently wished he would honor that promise. Checking the time, she saw that only 10 minutes had passed. Letting out a sigh, she changed her focus to the Hawthorne security personnel. Through the window, she could see they were already carrying Mrs. Blackwood out of the other cargo plane and into a sleek limousine that looked quite grand and fitting for the mother of Ethan Blackwood. She became a bit carried away watching the activities outside. When she glanced at the time again, she realized it was well beyond 30 minutes. "Shoot!" she cursed, quickly getting up to retrieve her bag from the compartment before hurrying down to the cabin door at the rear of the jet. She gently rapped her knuckles against the door before entering, but stopped when she saw Ethan turn around at the sound of the door opening. He was wearing new tailored pants and a white shirt with the buttons still undone, leaving his toned torso exposed and on display. Isla thought perhaps she should retreat and give him more time to finish dressing, especially when their eyes met and locked. But like a moth drawn to a flame, she entered and shut the door behind her. "Hey," Isla greeted softly, not breaking eye contact. "How are you holding up?" she probed, her voice soft and low. "Barely," he quipped, his eyes dimming into a smile. She chuckled, dropping her bag by the side of the door as she slowly walked up to him. "I'm sorry, I know this must not be easy," she said, standing about 3 inches away and looking up into his eyes, giving him a searching gaze. What Miss Morris had said about him liking her replayed in her head, and she really hoped the other woman was right, because she was drowning in need of him. "I wish I could help take the pain away," she added in a whisper. She then paused, reaching up to gently stroke his temple. "You look tired," she said with a smile. Ethan felt a stir of desire, like a lightning bolt, rushing through him at her touch, making his breath catch and his eyelids flicker. The magnetic pull of the hunger between them was undeniable, and he stepped forward, narrowing the space between them. Ethan could hear her breath quickening, her chest heaving faster than usual. He could tell she wanted him, and he really wished they had more time. However, when she dropped her hand, Ethan raised his hand to cup her jaw, slowly stroking her skin as he lowered his face to hover precariously over hers. "Hold that thought, Isla. When this is over, you'll have enough fire to help me put out, if you're willing," he rasped. Isla didn't quite understand what he meant, but her body seemed to know. Every nerve tingled with anticipation, and her breathing grew uneven. Ethan smiled at her before stepping back, turning away to finish dressing. Isla made her way to the shower, deciding it was best to freshen up. Ethan watched her as she undressed in the shower stall. Although he could only make out her blurred silhouette through the glass, he couldn't tear his gaze away, letting her distract him from what he was about to face, albeit temporarily. Not long after, Ethan, Alex, Anna, and Isla, led by Stephen and Jordan, stepped off the jet and into the waiting Bentley. Lewis had gone with the limousine that was carrying his mother's body ahead of them to the house. Ethan didn't quite understand why Nate had asked Andrew to go to such lengths to showcase wealth until he arrived at his house. There he saw an enormous marquee peeking out from the back of the property, and his grounds were filled with townsfolk. "What in the world?" Ethan muttered to himself. As he stepped out of the car, he noticed 4 familiar faces at the entrance of the event tent and a knot of unease twisted in his stomach. This won't end well, he thought to himself. Ethan instantly looked away as one of the 4 men glanced in his direction. From the corner of his eye, he saw the man tap the one next to him, gesturing toward him. Ethan took a deep breath and turned to the passenger door, offering Isla a hand to help her out. She promptly took his hand, meeting his gaze. Ethan wanted to smile at her, but he wasn't sure if he managed it. He truly hated being the center of attention. He figured it would have been a lot more bearable if Nate were there. No offense to Alex, but Nate had a way of pulling the crowd while maintaining an aloofness that sometimes made Ethan feel invisible. Alex, on the other hand, was an introvert, not one to talk too much. He preferred to observe, which contributed to his intelligence. Still, Ethan wished they both had Nate with them right now, and he hoped Nate was okay. Turning his attention back to the green-eyed witch Nate had so generously sent his way, he figured she would have to do for now. He didn't let go of Isla's hand as Alex and Anna joined them, with Alex standing to his left. Stephen and Jordan flanked the group, and Ethan noticed Lewis waiting by the entrance to the event tent, dressed in a sharp, black tailored suit. Ethan distracted himself by studying Lewis, his tall, muscular frame. He took a quick glance at Stephen and Jordan, noting their similar physiques, and figured the 3 of them looked capable of putting out fires if needed. "This is a really beautiful setup," Isla murmured under her breath, her eyes scanning the small but charming bungalow, the well-tended lawns, and the event tent set up at the back. Snow dusted the low-cut grass, and Chinese lanterns floated in the dark sky, with snowflakes gently drifting down. An enchanting smile softened her face, and Ethan thought she looked absolutely stunning. He wished that if they could make it through the night without any drama, he could give Miss Devereaux exactly what she wanted. He figured he'd need that with ardent desperation after surviving this event. "Yes, it is beautiful," Anna echoed, her voice low and filled with wonderment. Alex and Ethan exchanged a glance, holding back a laugh. "Oh, are you getting all mushy over lights now?" Ethan jeered. "Please, Ethan, let's enjoy the nice version of you a little while longer," Anna shot back. "All right, Miss Morris, I'll put away my jerk card for now," Ethan quipped, making Isla giggle. The sound caught his attention, and they shared a soft, lingering look. As they made their way toward the event tent, Ethan avoided glancing at the 4 men he'd noticed earlier, but as they passed by, one of them called out, "Come on, Ethan, you saw us standing here, right? What, too important to say hello now?" Isla felt Ethan's fingers tighten against hers, but he didn't stop walking, nor did he acknowledge the man. She glanced at him, noting his clenched jaw and the cold, determined gaze fixed straight ahead. Isla began to realize that while Ethan wasn't a fan of elaborate burials, there was more to it than just that. She flexed her fingers against the back of his hand, slowly brushing her thumb against his skin, silently reassuring him that he wasn't alone. She didn't miss the subtle tug at the corner of his lips in response. Inside the tent, Ethan couldn't help but be impressed. It seemed Nate was determined to give his mother a grand exit, whether Ethan liked it or not. The casket his mother had been flown in from Paris had been replaced with an extravagant champagne gold one, adorned with intricate gold floral designs that twined around the edges and center. The entire area where the casket rested was decorated with the finest white flowers, types that were rare and not easy to come by. A large painting of his mother in Venice, wearing a flowing white gown and a fancy hat, was displayed on the dais. The portrait captured her radiant smile and beauty, with her long brown hair appearing to be caught in a gentle breeze. Ethan felt his heart clench, and tears pricked the back of his eyes. "Damn it," he muttered in frustration. He'd promised himself he wouldn't cry, at least not in front of all these posers. "Okay. Wow," Anna whispered in awe, taking in the scene. She thought the entire setup resembled a royal wake. Beyond the grand display of the casket in the enclosed tent, there were no traditional rows of seats, just tables. Each table was adorned with candlelit paper lanterns and surrounded by neatly wrapped gifts, chocolates, and finger foods from various European cultures. Tears welled in her eyes at the lengths Nate had gone to, ensuring Ethan's mother was honored in such a significant and unforgettable way. The setting subtly yet beautifully showcased her travels, leaving Anna deeply moved. "I think I'm going to start crying," she murmured to Alex. He gently pulled her closer and pressed a kiss on the top of her head. Lewis approached, blocking Ethan's view as he said, "We've got the local parish pastor ready to speak for 10 minutes. After that, Miss Morris and Mr. Sterndale will give their speeches. There's also a woman from Dr. Hawthorne's hospital, Miss White, who submitted a speech. I've gone through it, and it's perfect. Now, it would look odd if you didn't say something. A simple thank you for coming would suffice." Ethan gave Lewis a dry look. "What? You think I'm going to tell everyone to go screw themselves?" "Please don't," Lewis replied, his tone serious. "Lighten up, Lewis, I'm just kidding," Ethan said with a grin. "Great. But Jordan and I are going to be up there with you. Just in case," Lewis added with a smile. "Your faith in me is touching," Ethan quipped. The two men shared a brief laugh. "Come on, I've set up a spot for you at the front," Lewis said, gesturing for them to follow. He led the group to the front left corner of the stylishly arranged space. Ethan tried to avoid making eye contact with anyone as they walked, knowing that each familiar face would dredge up memories he'd rather not revisit. The event, though beautiful, reminded him of a darker past he wasn't eager to relive. He wished Dr. Everly were alive. He was the one person who could have spoken about his mother in a way that mattered. The doctor had gone above and beyond for them, treating them for free and making sure medical debt wasn't something they had to worry about. When his mother couldn't work, Dr. Everly would have Ethan come by to collect groceries, always telling him not to let his mother know. Unlike most of the town, who had judged and looked down on them, Dr. Everly had treated them with dignity. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief when they reached the front and the pastor began his sermon. Glancing at his wristwatch, he noted it was a few minutes to 10 p.m. With Lewis standing right there at the foot of the dais, the pastor kept to time, finishing the sermon in exactly 10 minutes as Lewis had said he would. Then Miss White stepped onto the podium and, throwing a warm smile in Ethan's direction, she began her speech. Mrs. Blackwood was a hard-working woman. Miss White started, her voice steady but emotional. She dedicated herself to raising her son, and we can all see how much of an impact she's had. Ethan Blackwood has gone on to achieve great things as a chemical scientist, making Sylvan Ridge proud. But more than that, he's become a man with integrity and kindness, qualities his mother instilled in him from an early age. Miss White's eyes briefly met Ethan's as she continued. "Our town has lost one of its pillars, and my heart goes out to Ethan during this time. May she rest in peace." She finished with a soft nod and stepped down from the podium. Lewis immediately moved to assist her, and Ethan joined him, quietly thanking Miss White before giving her a gentle hug. As Miss White returned to her seat, Alex, Ethan's best friend, made his way up to the podium. With a grin, he began, "The first time I met Mrs. Blackwood, I was drinking a beer straight from the bottle. One look from her, and I immediately went to find a cup." A few chuckles echoed from the crowd. Alex's expression softened as he continued. Mrs. Blackwood may not have had all the riches in the world, but what she did have was heart. She taught Ethan to be the best human being he could be, and because of that, she gave me a brother I had never had. I'm forever grateful to her for that. Alex stepped down and Anna followed, with Alex helping her up and standing quietly behind her. Anna's voice was tender as she spoke. Mrs. Blackwood had a sense of style that could rival anyone I know, even in the social circles of my parents. She smiled faintly before adding, but more importantly, she was a loving mother. Strict, yes, but that's how she raised Ethan to be the man he is today. Her love for him was obvious to anyone who knew them. After Anna finished, she stepped down and Ethan took a deep breath as he approached the podium. For a moment, he just stood there gazing out at the crowd. Then he spoke, his voice low but steady. "I'm supposed to come up here and tell you all how wonderful my mother was, and thank you for coming to her wake." He paused, glancing around the room. "But honestly, I'm shocked at the crowd here today." As murmurs spread through the audience, Lewis and Stephen walked up to the podium, standing beside him. Ethan chuckled softly, the tension in his voice easing. "These men," he gestured to Lewis and Stephen, "are part of my best friend's security team. Apparently they don't want me making anyone uncomfortable, so we'll keep it short." The crowd gave a soft, understanding laugh. Ethan's tone became sincerer as he concluded, "Please, by all means, pay your last respects. Have a good night." With that, Ethan stepped away from the podium and began to leave, but a clear male voice called out from somewhere in the crowd, "That's the shortest speech I've ever heard at a wake." Then another voice chimed in, "That's because they're afraid someone might remember Mrs. Blackwood spent her whole life on her knees scrubbing toilets." Ethan froze, instant anger surging within him. But before he or the Hawthorne security team could react, Isla and Anna marched toward the voices. Isla, with one hand on her hip, tapped one of the men on the shoulder. He turned to look at her, giving her a once-over before a leering smile appeared on his face. "Hey, sweet cakes, ready to switch sides and be with a real man?" he sneered. Isla winced as if she'd been hit, then gave him a disgusted look, putting a finger in her mouth and mock gagging. "No, thank you," she said coolly. "I'd rather cuddle up to a snake than switch sides to a dimwit who thinks belittling hard-working women is cute or funny." The man's smile vanished, replaced by a scowl. "Oh, thank you for that one, Isla," Anna chimed in. "I bet he thinks because he can afford mediocre fashion he's playing in the big leagues." "Exactly, Miss Morris," Isla continued. "I bet his net worth doesn't even come close to Ethan's lowest paid employee." "Oh, what am I saying?" "A man who isn't afraid to make a public fool of himself probably doesn't have the IQ to even be on Ethan's working team." "Like, dude," Anna said, "do you even know what happens when you mix sodium hydroxide with hydrochloric acid?" Isla giggled. "He'd probably be like, 'Yo, bro, it's colorful.'" She mocked in a deep, exaggerated male voice. "And I bet your mothers were nothing but house furniture, sitting pretty and doing nothing," Anna added, anger flaring in her tone. "How dare you?" One of the men growled, stepping forward menacingly. Jordan and Stephen instantly moved to stand beside Anna and Isla, towering over everyone in the room. The men who had been mouthing off quickly fell silent, their eyes darting between the two hulking figures. "Oh, I dare," Anna said, her voice rising with fury. "You small-town billionair. I'm Anna Morris. Who the hell are your parents?" "Why are you even here if you don't like Ethan?" Isla interjected. "Like him?" One of the men scoffed. "He was nothing but a trash boy eating scraps off our tables." Isla felt like slugging the bastard, but kept her composure. "He was, you say?" she replied, her voice sharp. "So Ethan Blackwood used to be poor, and now he's a billionaire. What exactly are you still, sir?" She jabbed back at him, her tone cutting. "One more word out of you and you'll regret coming here," Alex warned from behind the women, drawing the men's attention. "In case you don't know who's talking, that's Alex Sterndale, another intelligent billionaire in the group," Anna quipped. "You see why switching sides isn't really an option. Come on, ladies, let's go," Alex said, trying to shepherd Anna and Isla back toward the front, but one of the men sneered. "I bet you chicks wouldn't be so chummy with Trash Boy if he still didn't have shit." Without hesitation, Isla turned around and reflexively jabbed the guy square in the nose. There was a moment of stunned silence before Anna broke into giggles. Isla, momentarily mortified, joined in, but then a sharp pain shot through her hand. She winced and let out a small, "Ah!" Stephen and Jordan quickly grabbed the men before they could think of retaliating. The one Isla punched yelled, "She hit my nose! The bloody witch hit my damn nose!" Stephen and Jordan half carried, half ushered the men out of the event tent while they continued to complain. Still giggling, Anna took Isla's hand, noticing the reddish swelling on her knuckles. She pulled out Alex's handkerchief to wrap around it. When their eyes met again, both women burst into laughter. Alex glanced from Isla to Anna, then over at Ethan, who seemed equally shocked and amused by what had just transpired. When Alex finally managed to get the women back to the front of the podium, Ethan looked from Anna to Isla, shaking his head. "I can't take you two anywhere," he said, his voice filled with humor, making the women laugh even harder. Ethan's heart swelled with emotion as he watched Isla, feeling an unexpected warmth wash over him. Mrs. Blackwood's wake continued for about 2 more hours before the Hawthorne guards, along with funeral home staff, arrived to take the body to the crematorium. Lewis asked the funeral manager to wait until everyone had left, giving Ethan some private time for his final farewell to his mother. As people noticed the casket being prepared for transport, they began to leave, their arms full of gifts and wrapped finger foods. A few sought Ethan out, expressing their condolences and wishing him the strength to bear the loss. Miss Mabel White waited for everyone else to leave before approaching Ethan. He smiled as she came forward and allowed her to hug him. When she stepped back, she said, "Thank you for making the last years of her life happy and memorable. I think she deserves to rest now." Ethan felt tears prick the back of his eyes at her words, and when he spoke, his voice was rough. "Thank you," he said simply. The older woman smiled warmly, nodded to Anna and Isla, who stood on either side of him, and then left. After the last person had gone, Ethan looked at his mother's casket and walked towards it. Lewis opened the top part for him. Ethan smiled, a bittersweet smile, as he took in how peaceful she looked. Miss Mabel White's words echoed in his mind, and he whispered, "Yeah, Mum, you should rest now." He paused and glanced at Lewis, who had stepped back to give him privacy, but was still watching closely, ready to step in if needed. Lewis gave him an acknowledging nod, his dark eyes filled with sympathy and concern. Ethan then noticed Alex, Anna, Stephen, Jordan, and Isla standing nearby, watching and waiting. He turned his gaze back to his mother. "I'll be fine, Mum," he murmured. As he stepped back, allowing the casket to be closed, the finality of it hit him. This was the last time he would see her. He released a shaky breath, his fists clenched by his sides, his eyes blurring with tears. He felt Anna move to his left and Isla to his right, while Alex stood behind him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. Gently kneading, Alex said, "We've got you, brother." Ethan nodded and muttered, "I know." "Where are they taking her now?" Isla asked, her eyes scanning Ethan's profile. "Crematorium," Alex replied. "I thought she was going to be buried," Anna added. "Her urn can be buried," Alex explained. "Nate just wanted Ethan to have the option of taking her with him to the east first. Nate thinks it would be cruel to bind her here, a place she ran from as soon as she could." Isla nodded, her heart constricting at the thoughtfulness behind every decision made for Mrs. Blackwood's send-off. It spoke volumes about how close-knit their group was. "Ethan?" Anna asked softly, her gaze searching his, silently asking if he was okay with the plan. Ethan nodded. "Nate's right," he said, his voice trailing off, and he muttered under his breath, "Gosh, I'm blessed to have you all." He let out a sigh. "Yes, I'd love to have my mum's ashes with me, even if it's just for a while." Anna nodded in agreement. "I think it's perfect," she said, her voice shaky. She thought, heavens forbid if she ever lost either of her parents, she would want them with her, especially if she was far from home. "There's also a grave prepared for her at the town cemetery," Lewis added, "if you decide to bury her urn. Or it can be placed in a columbarium." Ethan nodded, understanding the options. "Thanks, Lewis," he replied. The group followed the men as the casket was carried out of the marquee and placed into a waiting limousine. Stephen, Lewis, and Jordan stepped back, allowing the funeral home staff to take over. They stood in silence, watching as the limousine drove away. It was then that Ethan noticed a lone figure standing across the road at the edge of the woods, just watching. Lewis had spotted the man earlier when he came inside before anyone else arrived, leaving only when Ethan and the others showed up. He'd stood by the casket, and Lewis had noticed his shoulders shaking, certain the man had been crying. He'd wondered who the stranger was, especially since the man had gone to great lengths to shield his face, pulling up the collar of his long coat, wearing a bowler hat pulled down to his eyebrows. The dimly lit interior of the marquee had also helped obscure his face, casting shadowy hues over him. Stephen and Jordan moved closer to Ethan, standing nearby in case the man had any ill intentions. But Ethan didn't need the light to know who it was. He knew exactly who it was, and he was glad the bastard had chosen to keep his distance. Otherwise, he might have become the target for Ethan's pent-up emotions. "Who is that?" Anna asked quietly. "Who is who?" Ethan replied, feigning ignorance and turning away immediately to head toward the house. "Are we spending the night here, Lewis?" he said over his shoulder, missing the worried look his friends exchanged. "No, we'll wait for the funeral home to get back to us. Then we'll head off. In the meantime, there's food. And we can rest," Lewis replied. Good thinking, Ethan muttered, not stopping. I want out of here as soon as possible. Everyone followed him. Isla glanced back at the lone figure by the roadside, noticing he was still standing there in the cold. She couldn't help but wonder who he was. Jordan gave the order for the event team to start dismantling the marquee as he and Stephen headed to the back porch. Meanwhile, Lewis waited for Ethan and the others to go inside before carefully crossing the road, his hand resting inside his suit jacket, gripping his firearm. I'm not on Blackwood's property. I'm not disturbing anyone, came a gruff voice as soon as Lewis reached him. You have to understand, it's a security risk to leave you standing here without checking in, Lewis replied. The man didn't respond, but Lewis could tell from his voice that he wasn't young. You must have known Mrs. Blackwood. I saw you earlier paying your respects, Lewis added. The man remained silent. How did she die? The man finally asked. She went to sleep and didn't wake up, Lewis said. The man nodded. I hope I go that way too. She deserved a painless death, he replied, his voice rough and shaky. Don't we all? Lewis agreed. Will she have a grave? The man asked, his tone showing keen interest. Maybe. Ethan prefers to take her with him, Lewis answered. He would. He loved his mama, as he should. She gave him her all. She never failed him, the man said, his voice tinged with guilt. Lewis frowned, wondering if the man might be a relative. He didn't say anything else after that. The snowfall grew heavier, and Lewis gave the man a sidelong glance. You should leave. It's getting really cold out here, Lewis advised. It's always cold here, the man replied, confirming he was a local. If you tell me who you are, I can get a message to Ethan, Lewis offered, hoping to encourage the man to leave. The interment was over, and there was no reason for him to stay out in the cold. That won't be necessary, the man said, pulling a large envelope from his jacket and handing it to Lewis. When Lewis hesitated, the man added, It's open. You can check. It's just papers. Please give it to him. Thank you. He tipped his hat in a gesture of goodbye and started walking toward the woods. Lewis stared at the heavy envelope, then at the man's retreating figure. I didn't catch your name, he called out. Ian, the man replied. Ian Blackwood. Lewis's eyes widened in shock. Ethan felt like a caged animal, his emotions swirling inside him like a brewing storm. He managed to rein them in as he led his friends inside his childhood home. Though he'd renovated the house, adding a deck above the ground floor with architectural brilliance, it still looked like a bungalow from the outside. The addition of an attic gave the house a fresh look. He had knocked out the walls on the ground floor, turning the entire floor into an open-plan living room with a view of the kitchen. A short staircase led upstairs where he had created 3 bedrooms and a small family room. He switched on the lights, and the grand chandelier in the center of the ceiling bathed the room in a warm glow. The light reflected off the marble flooring and the dark wooden paneled walls. The scent of polished wood mixed with the aroma of the food laid out on the island table at the far end of the spacious enclosure, a stark contrast to how the house used to look and smell. Welcome to my home, everyone. Please make yourselves at home, Ethan said, gesturing grandly with his arms outstretched, a smile touching his face. But he wasn't fooling anyone. Alex knew him well enough to see that something was off. Ethan's eyes were detached and cold, far from his usual self. Ethan noticed Alex studying him and waved him off before heading upstairs. Isla wanted to follow him but hesitated. All right, let's eat and try to rest before we head back on the plane, Alex said. Roger that, Stephen replied. Let's see what we have here, Anna remarked, pulling Isla along as she walked to the kitchen. Isla and Alex assisted Anna with serving the food, while Alex brought out drinks just as Lewis entered. Alex exchanged glances with Lewis, who shrugged and held up the package Ian Blackwood had given him. Alex acknowledged him with a nod. Anna served Ethan's food and asked Isla if she would like to take it to him. Isla nodded eagerly and carried the tray upstairs. Ethan, she called softly but received no response. She walked down the short hallway listening for sounds until she reached the door in the middle of the right wall. She opened it and stepped inside, drawn in by the scent of Ethan's cologne. The room was warmly lit, and she saw him standing by the window, hands in his pockets, gazing out at the back porch. Isla set the food on the coffee table and moved to stand beside him. I brought your food, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not really hungry, Isla," he replied, his voice rough. "At least not for that," he added quietly. A tense silence fell between them, causing Isla's heart to race. Finally, she found the courage to ask, "What are you hungry for?" Ethan slowly turned to face her. "Be careful," he warned, his voice low and gritty. "Otherwise, this kind gesture of bringing me food might take a darker turn." Isla's heart raced as she met his intense gaze, feeling his eyes linger over her face and then down to her chest. His look shifted into a smoldering heat that made her breath quicken. She knew she should step back, the warnings from Miss Morris echoing in her mind, but instead she stepped closer, gently cupping his jaw with her hand. "You know it's okay to feel," she whispered. "It's natural to grieve." Ethan could see Isla's lips moving, but his mind drifted onto a different path as soon as she touched him. The pads of her fingers gently stroking his face instantly transformed his anger, grief, and pain into a surge of energy, igniting the desire he had been fighting since the moment he laid eyes on her. He leaned closer, bringing his face to the side of hers, silencing her words. Her breathing quickened, shallow and rapid, her chest heaving as Ethan brushed his lips against her skin, sending delicious shivers through her body. "Your safe word is Ian," he murmured just before he reached for the neckline of her dress and pulled. Isla gasped in shock. He covered her mouth with his to silence her, tearing off the entire front of her dress as he lifted her. He didn't head to the bed. It was too far away. "Ethan," Isla moaned as he buried his face in her chest, holding her against the wall with one hand while he pinned her wrists above her head. "You know the safe word. Just say it, Miss Devereaux," he growled. A whimper of pleasure escaped Isla's lips, but she didn't use the safe word. Downstairs, after finishing their meal, Lewis and Alex decide to call Nathaniel. Wanting to seek his advice on what to do about the package Ian Blackwood dropped for Ethan, Nathaniel picked up on the first ring. "Hey, how's it going?" Nathaniel's familiar deep voice came through the speaker. "We survived the wake," Alex replied, adding that Ethan had agreed to the cremation option. "Great. So are you guys on your way back?" Nathaniel asked. "We'll be leaving in a few minutes, boss," Lewis replied. "There's a matter we need your input on," Alex added. "Go ahead," Nathaniel responded. "Ian Blackwood showed up," Lewis said. Nathaniel cursed. "Ethan saw him?" He probed in apprehension. "I'm sure he did, but pretended otherwise," Alex replied. "I didn't realize it was him until Lewis found out." "And guess what the old man did?" "Please tell me he didn't provoke Ethan into making a scene?" Nathaniel asked with a groan. "Oh, there was a scene all right," Alex said, his anger kindling all over again. "From Ethan's cousins, Ian's kids. Remember those jerks who bullied him all through high school? They showed up?" Nathaniel sounded surprised. "You better believe it. They caused a scene, but Isla and Anna shut it down." Alex chuckled before recounting the details. Lewis frowned in thought. The older man's disguise made sense now. He must have wanted to attend without his children finding out. But why would Ethan's cousins treat him and his mother so poorly? "Isla did what now?" Nathaniel repeated, before bursting into laughter. "I'm serious," Alex said. "It's all captured in the event coverage video. I'll send you the clip," Jordan chimed in, causing Nathaniel to laugh even harder. "Sounds like you guys didn't need me there after all," Nathaniel quipped. Alex laughed too. "So what did old coward Ian do?" Nathaniel asked. "He left the property documents to this house." "Remember the one Ethan said Ian refused to hand over to his mother? And that's not all. According to these papers, Ethan now owns everything Ian Blackwood has. There's an unopened letter here as well. We're not opening that, but these are legit property documents. By the looks of it, Ian's leaving his 4 sons out in the cold. This is going to be a problem." "I doubt those idiots will let this go easily," Alex said. "Ethan will burn the papers the moment you give them to him, so don't. Let him read the letter." "No, scratch that. Make him read the letter," Nathaniel instructed. "And then get out of there. Those guys are vicious. If they did what they did to him back then, just for the fun of it, and still tried to embarrass him at his mother's funeral, imagine what they'd do when they find out about the properties. So get out. And fast," Nathaniel advised. "Got it," Lewis replied. "Thanks, Nate. How are you and Arya?" Alex asked. I'm all right, Arya's downstairs, Nathaniel said, then added, thanks. Oh, by the way, do you guys think you'll make it back in time for bonfire night? Jordan and Stephen chuckled as Lewis replied, we wouldn't miss it for the world. Nathaniel chuckled in return. See you soon, Nate, Alex said before ending the call. I'll let the pilot know to get ready, Lewis said, walking off. Alex took out the sealed letter and placed it in his inner jacket pocket. He gathered the remaining documents, put them back in the large envelope, and handed them to Stephen, who folded them and tucked them into his jacket. Alex then headed upstairs, intending to get Ethan to read the letter before they left. But as he reached the door and raised his hand to knock, he heard unmistakable groans coming from inside. A knowing smile stretched across his face as he slowly backed away and made his way back downstairs. About 2 hours later, Alex and Anna were cuddled up on the couch, fast asleep, when the sound of an approaching vehicle roused Alex from his nap. He opened his eyes, and outside, Lewis, Stephen, and Jordan cautiously headed out, only exhaling in relief when they realized it was the funeral home, returning with Mrs. Blackwood's urn. Lewis quickly made his way down to receive it, tipped the drivers generously, and watched as they drove away. Once back inside, he said, we should get going. Alex nodded and gently woke Anna, pressing a soft kiss on her forehead as she stirred. Sorry, love. You can rest once we're on the plane, Alex reassured her quietly. Uh-huh, Anna murmured sleepily. When Lewis made to go upstairs to wake Ethan, Alex stopped him. I'll get him, he said, hurrying up the stairs while the others finished getting ready to leave. After everyone had packed up and Lewis helped the tired Miss Morris into the Jeep, he noticed headlights approaching in the distance. He exchanged a glance with Jordan, who had already drawn his gun. Stephen stayed on the porch while Lewis and Jordan stood ready, using the car for cover as they waited for the vehicle to arrive. As the car neared, Lewis could make out that it was a Ford Jeep, and, noting that the driver wasn't one of the men from the wake earlier, he relaxed a little. The man stepped out, opened the back door, and helped a woman and a boy, who looked about the same age as Liam and Owen, out of the car. The man carried the boy as they cautiously approached the house. That's close enough. Who are you and what do you want? Jordan called out. At that moment, the front door opened and Ethan came out, followed by Isla and Alex. That's a valid question, Ethan said, his voice cool and edged with steel. But I already know who you are. So Pamela Harrison, tell me, what are you doing at my house at this ungodly hour? I'm sorry to come so late, but my source mentioned you were about to leave, and we didn't know if you were here with Dr. Arya Hawthorne, the man explained. Please, Ethan, Pamela said, her tone urgent. I'm not here for myself. Just give us a chance to explain. And you know I go by Pamela Graham now. We're not kids anymore, Ethan, she added, her voice a mix of pleading and quiet indignation. Isla was still lost in the hazy aftermath of the emotions Ethan had stirred in her, not fully registering the scene unfolding on the front lawn. She barely noticed Anna Morris stepping out of the car to watch, but the warmth of Ethan's hand enclosing hers brought her back to the present. His strong fingers were interlaced with hers, and her heart trembled at the memory of what had just happened between them upstairs. She felt shaky, emotionally raw, still reeling from the intensity of it all. Isla hadn't told Ethan that he was her first. From the moment he kissed her, she'd been too lost to speak, too caught up in the whirlwind of passion he had drawn her into. She vaguely remembered him giving her a safe word, something to say if she wanted him to stop, but she hadn't been able to utter it. When he realized she was a virgin, he had groaned, as if in pain, and she had called his name in desperate longing before he made her his. He had loved her so thoroughly, pulling her into a depth of feeling she hadn't even known existed. Now she fully understood what Miss Morris had warned her about. She felt like an addict, craving the ecstasy that only Ethan could give her, never wanting to be apart from him. Did I hurt you? His first breathless words after it all, his tender dark gaze searching her face with concern. His strong fingers gently tucked her hair away, and he pressed soft kisses against her skin. She wasn't able to speak then, only shaking her head. He'd kissed her again, and she had clung to him, unable to let go. A warning would have sufficed, you know. "I could have hurt you," he had gently admonished. She had held him tighter, and at some point she must have fallen asleep in his arms. A soft knock on the door had woken them both. Ethan had gotten up, picking up his shirt and coming to kneel beside her, helping her into it. When their eyes met, he gave her a sheepish grin. "I'll buy you a dozen dresses when we get to New York. Anything you want if you forgive me," he'd rasped. When she smiled, he kissed her again. The only reason he stopped was because of Alex's voice outside the door. "That's enough fun, kids. Come out, we're leaving." Isla had flushed with embarrassment, wondering how many times Alex had interrupted Ethan like that. She kept her gaze lowered, settling for wearing Ethan's shirt. He had found a pair of old joggers for her to put on, and she was wrapped in his suit jacket. Mortified, she thought about how everyone would see her in Ethan's clothes and speculate on what had happened. She kept her eyes down as Ethan led her out of the room, avoiding Alex's gaze entirely. She had hoped to sneak onto the plane and change into something else before anyone noticed, but now, this. She wondered who the couple were, and why Ethan seemed so angry at the sight of them. "Who are they?" Alex asked, turning to Ethan. "Glad you asked, my friend," Ethan began, his voice laced with sarcasm. "The woman you see is the witch who tormented Arya's life since high school, and the idiot next to her is the fool who made the mistake of marrying her. Same school, same situation. Meet Justin Graham, the most unfortunate man alive, and of course, Pamela Harrison, the bloody witch herself." Alex smirked. "Looks like your school was full of bullies." "Oh, please don't insult bullies by lumping Pamela in with them." Ethan shot back. "Please stop, Ethan. Please," Justin pleaded. "We've got a plane to catch, and plans already set," Stephen interjected, checking his watch. "I suggest you start talking fast." Justin sighed heavily. "Can we at least come inside? It's cold out here for my boy." "No. Didn't you hear what the big guy just said?" Ethan snapped, his tone sharp. "For God's sake," Pamela began, but Justin cut her off, his voice rising in frustration. "Shut up, Pamela," he yelled, making her flinch. She looked at him in surprise, her face crumpling, her lips trembling. "Damn it, woman, every time you open your mouth, you ruin things for me." Isla couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity for Pamela. She watched as the woman's spirit seemed to retreat, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. Justin took a breath and spoke again, his voice quieter but strained. "Our son, Tristan. He has a tumor growing in his brain. The tumor, glioblastoma, is aggressive, fast-growing. If we don't act quickly, Tristan's chances will diminish. I brought all the scans, the results, everything. The doctors are recommending surgery or..." His voice faltered and he clenched his fists, lowering his gaze before looking back up. "If he's going to be operated on, I'd feel more comfortable if Arya did it. Tristan's been admitted to Everleigh Hospital for a week now, after I transferred him from the other place. I can see they know what they're doing, and I want Arya to help. She's the best, and that is what we want." Ethan let out a harsh laugh. "The same hospital Pam used to criticize as the poor people's hospital? For the life of me." "Ethan," Anna cut in sharply, her tone a silent reprimand, warning him to stop. Isla didn't know the full extent of Pamela Harrison's sins, but she could sense that Ethan was teetering on the edge of cruelty now. "I'm sorry, okay?" Pamela's voice trembled, sounding fragile, almost broken. Ethan clenched his jaw, his anger blazing. He felt no sympathy for the woman who had caused so much harm. "Arya isn't here," Alex replied. "She just gave birth. She had triplets, 2 boys and a girl." He added gently, "There's no way she could have made it here at this time." "Sorry," he added, his voice tinged with a note of regret. "Then do you mind if I come with you, with my son?" Justin Graham asked, hopeful. "Justin, what? We didn't talk about this. What about me?" Pamela Harrison interjected, her voice laced with hurt and dismay. "There's no way in hell I'm getting on a plane with you, Pamela," Ethan retorted coldly. Justin glanced at his wife. "There's your answer," he said bluntly. Lewis, standing by and watching the exchange, saw Pamela begin to protest, but then reconsidered, thinking better of it. "Lewis, can we accommodate 2 extra passengers?" Alex asked. "It might cause a slight delay," Lewis started to explain. "I'll handle that. I have a few strings I can pull," Justin said, determined. Everyone's gaze turned to Ethan. Isla tightened her hold on Ethan's hand, silently grounding him. After a beat, Ethan sighed and said, "Let's go. We'll meet you on the tarmac." "I just need to grab our passports," Justin said, quickly ushering his wife back to the car. He opened the rear door to gently place his son inside before sliding into the driver's seat. A moment later, he drove off into the snow-dusted night. Alex joined Anna, and everyone filed into the Bentley as Ethan and Lewis locked up the house, with Lewis carrying Mrs. Blackwood's urn. As they approached the car, Ethan held out his hands for Lewis to pass the urn to him. Accepting it, Ethan held it tightly before slipping into the back seat with the others. Isla sat beside him, and he threw her a sidelong glance as the car purred to life. Ethan couldn't help but feel frustrated that he hadn't had time to fully savor the intensity of what had just transpired between him and Miss Devereux in his room. He leaned back against the headrest, taking a deep breath, his eyes lazily tracing the lines of her profile. His mind wandered back to how it had felt to be with her, so raw and powerful, something entirely new to him. Perhaps it was the grief or Ian's sudden arrival, but he couldn't shake the need to experience it again. He only hoped Isla would want that too. Back in New York, Aria was with Nathaniel when Lewis called to warn her about Justin Graham's persistent demand to see her. "He's meeting us on the tarmac with the kid," Lewis informed them. Aria quickly glanced at Nathaniel, her eyes searching for his response. "Did you tell him my wife just gave birth?" Nathaniel asked, knowing Aria was silently seeking his approval with her gaze. "Yes, Mr. Sterndale told him. But like I said, he's desperate, to put it simply," Lewis explained. Nathaniel turned to Aria and said, "It's your decision, babe. I know you wouldn't want to refuse with a kid involved, and you've got nothing against Justin Graham." His voice trailed off as he gently brushed her jaw with his hand. Nathaniel was resting on his makeshift hospital bed, while Aria sat beside him, holding the phone so they could both listen and respond to Lewis. Aria sighed. Nathaniel was right. She couldn't turn down the chance to at least see Justin and have Tristan checked. Luckily, with the concierge medical unit and Samuel Cavalier present, Tristan wouldn't be the only patient. "All right, thanks, Lewis. I guess we can accommodate them at the medical unit," she asked. "Of course, Dr. Hawthorne," Lewis confirmed. "Good, thanks for the heads up." "See you soon," she replied before ending the call. She then took a cleansing breath, her small shoulders drooping, sadness flickering in her eyes as she thought about Tristan Graham's condition. Despite being a bully like his mother, he was still just a child. She made a mental note to warn the twins before they arrived. "Come here," Nathaniel murmured softly, pulling her close as she snuggled against him, resting her head in the crook of his neck. He wrapped her in a comforting embrace. "It's all right, my love," he whispered, pressing a kiss on her forehead. At the concierge medical unit, Dr. Hart was comfortably settled in a hospital bed, while Dr. Sterling prepared to take her blood samples for the evaluations recommended by Dr. Hawthorne. The blood samples were supposed to be used to assess Dr. Hart's hormonal levels, ensuring her body was adequately prepared for the potential demands of surrogacy. Afterward, Dr. Sterling picked up the ultrasound pad and carefully lifted Dr. Hart's hospital gown to apply the scanning gel on her abdomen. She examined her uterine integrity closely, looking for any concerns regarding her reproductive health. Next, Dr. Hart underwent a cardiovascular evaluation that included an EKG and a stress test to assess her heart's resilience and overall well-being, leaving no doubts about her physical readiness. "For the psychological evaluation, would you prefer we use your team or ours?" Dr. Sterling asked with a polite smile as Dr. Hart began putting her clothes back on. Dr. Hart chuckled. "Either option works for me, but since I just had a psychological evaluation on my end, it might be redundant to do it again." "Let's go with your team," she suggested. Dr. Sterling nodded. "I'll arrange an appointment for you right away. Would tomorrow morning be suitable?" she asked. Dr. Hart hesitated before responding. "Sure, why not?" Dr. Sterling acknowledged her reply and quickly took out her phone to call Evergreen Memorial Hospital. Once they finished, Dr. Sterling escorted Dr. Hart out of the concierge medical unit to the waiting car that would take her back to the main house. "There's an event the Hawthornes are hosting tonight," Dr. Sterling said with a friendly smile. "My boyfriend Charles referred to it as a bonfire night. Will you be joining us?" she asked with genuine interest. No, I don't think so, Dr. Hart replied promptly. Oh, that's a pity. I hear everyone will be there, and you should come, even if just for a little while. Charles said it's usually a lot of fun. Twice before Dr. Hart could respond, a male voice called out from the right side of the grounds. Please say you'll come. I don't want to be left hanging without a date. Dr. Sterling and Dr. Hart turned in that direction and saw it was Will, one of the Hawthorne bodyguards. Being a gynecologist, or any doctor for that matter, requires one to be keenly observant, not just of the patient's body language, but also of the family members or friends accompanying them for examination or treatment. Some patients are uncomfortable discussing certain medical conditions or symptoms in front of their family or significant other. The ability to discern the unspoken often turns out to be a saving grace for those patients. So, when Dr. Sterling heard Dr. Hart's sharp intake of breath and noticed her subtle recoil at Will's suggestion of a date, she immediately jumped in. Sorry, Will, I called dibs. This is going to be my first time, and Dr. Hart's first time, at a big Hawthorne party. Newbies like us are sticking together. Girl code, Dr. Sterling said smoothly, adding, but you're welcome to be a third wheel, like Charles. Evangeline directed her gaze toward Dr. Sterling. Her heart, which had taken a terrified leap at the mention of a date, began to calm as the Dr. Sterling met her eyes. The subtle nod and the understanding gleam in Dr. Sterling's gaze made her a little emotional. Dr. Williams' words assuring her that the Hawthorne estate was a safe haven replayed in her mind, and she said a brief prayer of thanks for his decision to bring her here. It seemed he was right. It was, indeed, a safe haven. A sense of relief washed over her, and her unease began to melt away. I really wouldn't mind being a fourth wheel as long as Dr. Hart doesn't mind, Will added, his tone friendly. He hadn't become a Hawthorne guard by being oblivious. He too had noticed Dr. Hart's sudden stillness at his suggestion. Though he didn't know her story, he could recognize the signs of fear when he saw them. And Dr. Hart had exhibited them in a blink of an eye. Respectfully, he maintained a few feet of distance, offering a warm, friendly smile. What do you say, girlfriend? Shall we give Lord Will the privilege of our company? Choices, 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 Dr. Sterling quipped, placing a finger under her chin and pretending to ponder, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Evangeline couldn't help but chuckle. If Sir Will understands that we owe him no obligations, then he's free to be our fourth wheel. As they say, it's a free country, she replied. Will held his hand to his chest, feigning hurt, and hung his head in mock defeat. That's just cold, he said, his deep voice tinged with exaggerated pain, which only made Dr. Sterling and Evangeline break into giggles. Back at the Hawthorne household, Nathaniel gently took Arya's hand, which she had placed over his stomach, and guided it slowly to rest against his heart on his bandaged chest. Arya pulled back slightly from where she had buried her face in the crook of his neck, her adoring eyes tracing over his side profile. Remember when I first asked you to marry me? He asked, his gaze finally meeting hers. Arya nodded slowly. It was a condition so I wouldn't have to file for custody of our sons, he added, watching her intently. Yes? Arya responded, her tone prompting him to continue. The wedding was quick, small, Nathaniel said, pausing again. He looked away for a moment before bringing her hand to his lips, pressing a tender kiss to the center of her palm. I want a do-over, he finally admitted, his dark, intense gaze locking onto hers. Arya's heart skipped a beat at the depth of emotion in his eyes. Will you give me that, baby? Marry me again? He asked softly. In response, Arya cupped his jaw and kissed him, gently taking his lower lip into her mouth and deepening the kiss. A surge of emotion made Nathaniel's breath quicken and become shallow. He cupped the back of her head with one hand and framed the side of her neck with the other, kissing her with an ardent yet gentle intensity that made Arya tremble. She almost straddled him before remembering she probably shouldn't. Her body wasn't quite ready for that yet. Just then, Dr. Williams entered the room and quickly turned away at the sight of the passionate kiss between the couple. He cleared his throat loudly, needing them to stop. Nate had just undergone surgery and still needed a few more days to heal before pushing those particular boundaries. Nathaniel heard Dr. Williams at the same moment. Arya hesitated and pulled away from the kiss. Gosh, Williams, you're begging to be fired right now, Nathaniel growled, making Arya giggle. Dr. Williams chuckled, waving off the empty threat as he said over his shoulder, "We should probably give the two of you a few more days before resuming that particular activity," the older man quipped. Nathaniel, irritated but amused, yanked the bell rope by his bedside. The guards stationed outside promptly opened the door and peered in. "Boss?" one of them asked, confused. "Take this old man for a walk," Nathaniel ordered. Dr. Williams burst out laughing, while Arya hid her face against Nathaniel's stomach, laughing along with him. "Fine, I'll make myself scarce. I trust Dr. Hawthorne to be the responsible one," Dr. Williams said with a mischievous grin. Nathaniel shot him a glare. Once they were alone again, Nathaniel gently placed his hand on Arya's head, slowly running his fingers through her curls. She glanced sideways at him, her head still resting on his firm stomach. "That was a yes, right, baby?" he rasped, his voice low and husky. Arya nodded, her eyes gleaming with loving tenderness as they held his dark gaze, her lashes fluttering at the soothing touch of his fingers on her scalp. "I didn't say yes back then because of your condition. I said yes because I love you and wanted to marry you, Nathan," she replied, her voice gentle and full of affection. Nathaniel's breathing quickened, and he applied a bit more pressure as he stroked her scalp, his heart pounding. "How long are we medically required to wait before I can love you again?" he murmured. Feeling blood rushing straight to his loins, Arya laughed, the sound making him shiver, as she pressed a playful but lingering kiss on his belly button. "Ariana," he moaned. Sometime later, Andrew came to inform Nathaniel that Ethan's team was back and on their way to the house with Justin Graham and his son, Tristan. As Andrew was still speaking, Nathaniel received a text and immediately checked his phone. Seeing it was from Alex, he opened the message. Alex wanted Nathaniel to know that, because Justin Graham was accompanying them back to New York, he couldn't get Ethan to read the letter Ian Blackwood had left for him. Nathaniel quickly texted back, assuring Alex not to worry, and that they'd make Ethan read it together once they got back to the house. Arya kissed Nathaniel, excusing herself as she promised to return shortly, then hurried out, leaving Nathaniel and Andrew to discuss whether she could still visit the concierge to see Tristan Graham and Samuel Cavalier. Arya rushed down the hallway and took the elevator up to their new living suites. When she stepped outside, she spotted Liam and Owen lounging by the pool, watching the glow of a distant bonfire lighting up somewhere on the estate. As soon as they saw their mom, they quickly grabbed books and reclined on the lounges, trying to look casual. Arya chuckled to herself. "I didn't say you couldn't watch," she said, amused by their overly nonchalant pose. "But Mom, do you really mean we're grounded until we're 18? 'Cause that's just not attainable," Owen protested. "And Miss Christine Powell wins if we get punished for pranking her," Liam added. "As I said, your dad and I might reconsider if you show good behavior," she replied. "We're always well behaved," Owen argued with a frown. "Pranking someone isn't exactly what I'd call good behavior, my knight," Arya countered. "But Mom, she deserved it," Liam exclaimed. "It doesn't matter. I'm not raising vindictive humans," Arya responded, settling into a chair near them. "Speaking of being vindictive, do you boys remember Tristan Graham from back at Sylvan Ridge?" The twins exchanged a look before sitting up and giving their mom their full attention. "Is he dead?" Owen asked. "'Cause that's the only reason you should be bringing him up," Liam interjected with a nod. "Boys, come on now. I know the boy was," Arya began, her voice trailing off as she searched for the right word to describe the troubled child. Owen quickly interjected, "A demonic child?" Liam, with exaggerated solemnity, made the sign of the cross over his chest. Arya fought back laughter at Owen's dramatic suggestion and Liam's over-the-top response. "Fine, he was a bit of a handful," she admitted, "but he's sick now and his dad has brought him to New York, so I can help him," she added in a solemn tone. "Nah, say no, Mama," Liam protested with indignation. "Yeah, Mom, say no. Unless he's about to die, die," Owen added firmly. "What do you mean? We don't care if he dies?" Liam asked, looking at his brother incredulously. "It's real death, Liam, not the—" "I wish you'd die kind," Owen clarified, making Liam furrow his brows. He shot their mom a cautious glance. "What's he got?" he asked, still trying to maintain a non-committal demeanor. "Cancer. A tumor in his brain," Arya explained gently. Owen and Liam exchanged a look that seemed to say, No surprise there. Can you really help him? Liam asked, his tone more serious now. Like you helped Dad? I'm going to try, God willing, Arya replied. Liam nodded, recalling the pain his dad went through, and shrugged. He supposed Tristan might have learned his lesson and hopefully would be a better person now. Do you think he'll change his bad character if he gets better? Owen asked, with genuine interest. He might, Arya said with a smile, playfully tapping the tip of his nose. He'd better, Liam muttered darkly. Arya chuckled. Where will they stay? Owen asked. They'll be staying the night here, I suppose, Arya explained. I need to review his test results and determine the next steps. You know I can't go back to work just yet, so they'll need to come to the concierge medical unit. The twins exchanged another glance. Would you like to see him? Arya asked, looking between the two. No, they both answered in unison. Okay, but if you change your minds, let me know, Arya said, smiling as the boys exchanged yet another look before nodding at her. So it's awfully quiet here. Are your brothers and sister asleep yet? Arya asked, getting up and heading inside. Liam and Owen followed her, each taking one of her hands. The ladies are there, Owen supplied cryptically. The entire gang, Liam added. Arya chuckled at their vague responses. Meanwhile, at the lakeside, Jake, after helping set up the bonfire alongside Charles, stood aside as the other guards, kitchen staff and groundskeepers worked together to make the final arrangements. The rest of the estate staff began to gather on the sandy shore. A few members of the kitchen staff hurried to set out food and refreshments on mats laid in front of each tent, while others carried the remaining food from the food van to the massive, sturdy dining table. Lightly drifting snow, combined with the soft candlelight and the orange glow of the bonfire, added to the beauty of the dark, starless night. The cold open air mingled with the scent of roasted food and prepared meals, while the soft undertones of music and laughter filled the atmosphere. Jake watched as Anton and Dawn arrived, a faint smile forming on his lips at the clear display of affection between them. Anton looked genuinely happy, and Jake thought he deserved it after everything he'd been through. Noticing Jake's gaze, Anton waved before ushering Dawn in his direction. Meanwhile, Charles, also making his way towards Jake, notices Dr. Claire Sterling walking with Dr. Hart along the path leading to the shore. He paused mid-stride, a smile stretching across his face as he raised a hand to wave, hoping to attract Claire's attention. But then he spotted Will walking beside Dr. Hart, and his brows furrowed. Instinctively, he cast a quick glance in Jake's direction. Jake didn't catch the look. His focus was entirely on Dr. Hart. She looked striking in her white winter jacket, her loose curls cascading over her shoulders and framing her beautiful young face perfectly. He couldn't tear his gaze away until she glanced at him, their eyes meeting and holding for a few moments. Then he noticed Will placing a hand on her forearm, seemingly to get her attention. Jake's eyes fixated on that hand for an unhealthy length of time before he finally lowered his gaze. This is going to be one hell of a night, he muttered under his breath, trying to control the surge of anger burning inside him at the sight of Will touching Evangeline. It was a feeling that caught him off guard, and he briefly considered leaving. He wasn't sure he could handle seeing that gesture again without losing control. Now he understood why Nathaniel Hawthorne often became so irrationally possessive when another man touched Dr. Hawthorne or caught her interest in his presence. This isn't good, he muttered to himself, running a hand over his face. Will is family, damn it, he thought to himself.